Good morning, dear students. Actually, it's good afternoon. Good afternoon, dear students. Yesterday, we had a preliminary introduction to the topic that we are going to discuss further, that's holding company accounts. So, I hope you all have gained a basic understanding about holding company. But as we met through Zoom, I do understand there were students who couldn't get access to the entire portions completely and consistently. So this is for them as well. So today we will be talking more about what we've discussed yesterday itself, or it can be considered as a recap session, so that you will gain better understanding about the topic, which is quite essential, as holding company is a really important aspect of our syllabus this semester. So, as we've said yesterday, in holding company, there are two main parties: holding company and the other company, which is known as subsidiary company. So I hope at least you all might have read your textbooks and have understood what a holding company is and what a subsidiary company is. So what is your preliminary understanding about a holding company? So as we discussed yesterday, a holding company is that company which has got some holding. So that holding is definitely the power they hold, the power they possess, and that can be considered as a controlling power. So that means a holding company is a company which exercises a controlling power upon another company. So the company which controls is known as a holding company, and the company which is being controlled is known as a subsidiary company. So, by virtue of that relationship, we can call a holding company as a parent company and a subsidiary company as a child company, and together they both can be called as a group. Okay, so a group comprises of two companies at least, which is a holding company and a subsidiary company. Now, it would be better to know when a company can be considered as a holding company, or how can a company earn that controlling interest which we've been talking about. So, how do you think that's possible? As I still remember some of you pointing it out in the class yesterday. So, the easiest way is to hold more than half of the shares of the other company. So, we will be normally indicating holding company with the letter H, that's H limited, and subsidiary company with the letter S, that's S limited. So, holding company or H limited holds more than 50 percentage shares of the other company, that is S limited, or in other words, or in by other means, the controlling interest can be acquired by controlling the composition of board of directors in the subsidiary company. Or there can be chances that if B Limited is a subsidiary of A Limited and C Limited is a subsidiary of B Limited, then A Limited can be considered as the holding company and B and C can be considered as the subsidiary company. These all are very basic things to it, which you all can read and understand from the textbooks. So I don't think we need to spend much time on that, especially as we've discussed it yesterday. So for the time being, just remember, whenever we talk about holding company accounts, we two persons or two parties should ultimately come to our minds, that's holding company and subsidiary company. Now, subsidiary company can be of two types, that's partly owned subsidiary and wholly owned subsidiary. So we'll be talking about partly owned subsidiary. Partly owned subsidiary means a holding company do not hold the entire shares of the subsidiary company. So that means the shareholders of S Limited or the subsidiary company include not just the holding company, rather it includes some outside shareholders as well. So as you can find it from the slide, or you can find it from the screen, holding company has got some shares in subsidiary company. Along with that, outside shareholders has also got shares in subsidiary company. Such a case, we call the subsidiary company as a partly owned subsidiary. Okay. Now moving on to the next thing, that's fully owned subsidiary. Fully owned subsidiary means, rightly as we said in the beginning, there are only two parties, that's the holding company and the subsidiary company. There is no more persons coming in. So it's just a relationship between holding company and subsidiary company, and holding company, as we said, holds the entire shares of the subsidiary company. Okay. Now, I hope you remember we've been talking about the profits of subsidiary company. That's why I indicated it as S Limited. So we said profit is always part and parcel of our topics. So here we need to differentiate the profits, or we need to categorize the profits into two, that's capital profits and revenue profits. You may be wondering why it is needed. It is needed because it is part and parcel of the calculations, the workings that we do in relation to the holding company accounts, or in relation to the balance sheet or the financial statement which we are supposed to prepare in holding company accounts. Okay, so how can we determine whether a particular profit is capital profit or revenue profit? We have an indicator for that, we have a determining factor for that. So that factor is the date of acquisition. So what would be date of acquisition? As we said it in yesterday's class, I didn't elaborate much about it in today's class, but I hope you will be remembering. Date of acquisition is naturally the date at which something is acquired. So what is that something over here? That is definitely the shares in subsidiary company. And who is acquiring that shares? Naturally it should be the holding company. Okay, so date of acquisition is the date at which holding company acquires the shares in subsidiary company. Okay, so that date determines whether a profit is capital profit or a revenue profit. So capital profit or revenue profit. So we have capital profit over here. Just a minute. So we have capital profit over here and we have revenue profit over here. So we call a profit as capital profit if the profit is acquired before the date of acquisition. If the profit is earned before the date of acquisition, we call that profit as capital profit. And the profit earned after the date of acquisition is known as revenue profit. I hope it is clear. The profit earned before the date of acquisition is known as capital profit, and the profit earned after the date of acquisition is known as revenue profit. Okay. So, for example, let's take the very same example which we said yesterday. If the financial year is from January to December, and if the balance sheet shows a profit as on 31st December, of course, and the date of acquisition is again 31st December. So that means the entire profit is earned before December 31st, and thereby the entire profit belongs to capital profit as the profit is earned before the date of acquisition. Okay, but let's think it as the date of acquisition is on June 1st. If the date of acquisition is on June 1st, that means the 12 months period is divided into two slots. That's before acquisition, which is known as pre-acquisition, and after acquisition, which is known as post-acquisition. Okay, pre-acquisition and post-acquisition. So if the period of the date of acquisition was on June 1st, naturally Jan, Feb, March, April and May. So we got 5 months before the date of acquisition, and from June to December we've got June 1st to December. Remember that, June 1st to December we've got 7 months as post-acquisition. So whatever is the profit earned during those first 5 months from Jan to May end or June 1st, that comes under capital profit, and whatever profit is earned between June 1st to December 31st, that comes under revenue profit. And that's why, as Vijil reminded yesterday, the capital profit is also known as pre-acquisition profit, and revenue profit is also known as post-acquisition profit. Okay. So remember, date of acquisition is the determining factor, and thereby we divide the profit into two: capital profits and revenue profits. Okay. So we've got some rules in consolidation. So then we have to think about what is consolidation over here and what are we consolidating, why the term consolidation, and all that. Okay. So holding company is one entity, subsidiary company is another entity, but by virtue of the holding company has got some investment in the subsidiary company. Okay. So while preparing the financial statements or the holding company accounts, we are supposed to prepare something called the consolidated financial statement. Consolidation means the holistic picture or bringing together everything. So, what are we bringing together over here? I hope you remember our discussion yesterday. We are bringing together the assets and liabilities of both the holding company and the subsidiary company. So, simply, or in a nutshell, the consolidated financial statement talks about the total of the assets and liabilities. But we have to remember a very important point while we consolidate. That is, we need to eliminate two parties. We need to eliminate two accounts, and that is nothing other than the investment account in the balance sheet of the holding company. That means holding company has got investment in subsidiary company, and that's how they earn the controlling interest, isn't it? So if they acquired shares in subsidiary company, that simply means the balance sheet of the holding company has got an item called investment, definitely on the asset side, isn't it? And we need to eliminate the holding company's investment which is depicted on its asset side. And coming back to the sentence again, and showing in its place assets and liabilities of its subsidiary company. Showing in its place. So we can't just eliminate an account, as per we wish, that you all definitely know. So when we take out an item from a balance sheet, there should be a reason for it. We've got a fantastic reason over here because we are going to replace, or we are going to replace the investment amount of the holding company with what is it being represented, or how is it being represented. The investment of the holding company is being represented in the subsidiary company as assets and liabilities, definitely. So what we do is we take the assets and liabilities of the subsidiary company, we merge those assets and liabilities with that of the holding company, and we prepare that, or we depict that in the consolidated financial statement. Okay, so you just have to add the assets and liabilities of both the holding company and subsidiary company in the consolidated balance sheet. I hope you remember our discussion. If holding company has got assets, buildings worth 1 lakh, and subsidiary company has got buildings worth 50,000, in the consolidated balance sheet we show the item buildings as worth of 1,50,000, because we write buildings and in the bracket we show 1 lakh plus 50,000, that is 1,50,000. That is the consolidated figure. Okay. So, while we do such consolidation, we have to eliminate the investment account in the balance sheet of the holding company. And also, one more thing, while we take the entire assets and liabilities of the subsidiary company, we shouldn't be taking the capital, the share capital of the subsidiary company. Okay, if you think, you will understand, the share capital itself represents the net assets. The assets minus liabilities of the subsidiary company is what is being represented by the share capital. So we don't take share capital of the subsidiary company in the consolidated balance sheet. The second point, the second point, subsidiary company's share capital, naturally on the liability side of theirs, it won't be taken to the consolidated balance sheet. Along with that, eliminate the holding company's investment, whatever be the investment amount appearing on the asset side of the holding company, we don't take that as well. Okay, then coming to minority interest, which we talked about yesterday. Minority interest, where does it appear? Where does the term or the significance for minority appears? Will it appear in the case of a wholly owned subsidiary? I hope and pray that you should be answering no, it is not. Because a wholly owned subsidiary, as we said, there are no more parties other than the holding company and subsidiary company. So, naturally, the case of minority arises if the subsidiary is a partly owned subsidiary. For example, as we said yesterday, the subsidiary company has got share capital worth 1 lakh. Holding company has got 80 percentage of its shares, or we can even say 8,000 shares of rupees 10 each, 80,000. That means 80% of the shares is held by the holding company. I'm sorry. So naturally, the 20 percentage is to be held by someone. That 20 percentage is being held by the minority shareholders. Okay. So the minority shareholders share, or they hold the 20 percentage of the shares of the holding company, and the holding company holds, sorry, the minority shareholders holds the 20 percentage of the shares of the subsidiary company, and holding company holds 80 percentage of the shares of the subsidiary company. So naturally, we have to compute something called minority interest. Minority interest simply refers to the controlling interest possessed by the minority shareholders in the assets and liabilities of the subsidiary company. I hope you got it. So, how do we calculate minority interest? I will say it one more. Minority interest is the controlling interest held by the minority shareholders in the assets and liabilities of the subsidiary company. Okay, so in very simple terms, what is the right of the minority shareholders upon the subsidiary company? Okay, so there is a way in which we calculate that. So this, it can be considered as a three-step process. So first we take the share capital, not the entire share capital, the share of minority shareholders in the share capital of subsidiary company. Okay, along with that we add the share of minority shareholders in the capital profit of the the subsidiary company. Along with that, we again add the share of minority shareholders in the revenue profit of the subsidiary company. So please try to understand. Minority interest is calculated by taking three components mainly, that is share of minority shareholders in the share capital. Along with that, we add share of minority shareholders in the capital profit. Along with that, we add share of minority shareholders in the revenue profit. Needless to mention that if it is capital loss and revenue loss, it will be deducted as well. Okay, so that's how we do the minority interest part. And let's try to think about a few more points over here, some important terminologies. So as we said, there are a few parties called H limited, okay, then S limited, okay, then minority interest, okay, and we have heard that there is capital profit, there is revenue profit. Okay, so both H limited and S limited has got a share in the capital profit as well as the revenue profit of the subsidiary company. Okay, both H limited and S limited both H limited and minority shareholders has got a share of the capital profit as well as the revenue profit of S limited. Okay, now this I don't know whether this looks complicated, but you just have to look at it and try to gain some points. We will be explaining it further. So there are a few terms called capital reserve or goodwill and minority interest. We haven't yet discussed the term capital reserve and goodwill. We'll be doing it maybe in detail tomorrow. Still, you will have to understand that capital reserve or goodwill is something which is associated with the holding company. And I hope you remember our discussion on amalgamation, wherein we had to calculate the goodwill if in case the purchase price paid by the purchasing company is more than the net assets acquired by the purchasing company. Okay, so if thinking about amalgamation gives you a headache, you just have to, skip thinking about it. No need to think about it. So again, like that, here as well, the capital reserve or goodwill is something associated with acquisition of shares by the holding company, which we'll discuss about. And minority interest, we've already learned that minority interest includes share capital of S Limited. Share capital of S Limited refers to minorities' share in share capital of S Limited, minorities' share in revenue profit of S Limited, minorities' share in capital profit of S Limited. Okay, these three components denotes our minority interest, and the capital reserve or goodwill is being received by totaling share capital of H Limited. That means share of holding company in the capital of S Limited. That is what I have meant here. Share of holding company in the share capital of S Limited, and share of holding company in the capital profit of S Limited, and share of holding company in the revenue profit of S Limited. These three figures gives you capital reserve or goodwill, and these three figures gives you minority interest. This you will understand it much better while we start doing the problems. Okay, so the next thing that we have to discuss is the accounting treatment. I'm not going to talk about this in detail because this is what we have to do in the entire module. Okay, so accounting treatment, you have to remember that S Limited has got revenue profit, capital profit, and share capital. Okay, and H Limited has got share of share capital of S Limited, share of share capital of share of capital profit of S Limited, as also share of revenue profit of S Limited. So capital profit of S Limited and share capital of S Limited together, that determines the capital reserve or goodwill, and share capital, capital profit, and revenue profit, it together determines the minority interest. As we said, the minority interest is being calculated by share of minority shareholders in the share capital of S Limited, share of minority shareholders in the capital profit of S Limited, share of minority shareholders in the revenue profit of S Limited. Okay, but the capital reserve or goodwill is calculated by share of holding company in the share capital of S Limited, share of holding company in the capital profit of S Limited. We compare that with the purchase price paid or the investment cost, the cost of investment of shares in S Limited. I now realize that I made a mistake in explaining this particular slide, because I said capital reserve or goodwill is computed by these three. I'm really sorry about it. Capital reserve or goodwill is while calculating capital reserve or goodwill, we omit revenue profit, we omit share of H Limited in revenue profit. This is just this portion, that's why I've denoted capital reserve over here, but while explaining it wasn't said, so I believe. So capital reserve or goodwill, we take into consideration only two aspects: share capital, share of H Limited in the share capital of S Limited, share of H Limited in the capital profit of S Limited, and then we take that and we compare it with the cost of investment, and if the cost of investment is more, we get goodwill. If the cost of investment is less, we get capital reserve. And you may be wondering, so here definitely there is a revenue profit portion for H Limited as well. H Limited has got a share in the revenue profit of S Limited. Where will it go? That's what is being explained here. The profit portion, the revenue profit portion of H Limited in S Limited will be shown under the heading P&L account in the consolidated balance sheet. Okay, I hope this has helped you gain a better understanding on the basics of holding company. There are definitely much more to learn that we'll be discussing in the further classes, and keep me posted on how you find this, and please do raise your queries, please do raise your concerns. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll meet tomorrow. Bye.